Back. All right, where did we go? Hey, maybe that's got it now. So I'm going to stay in the control room here looking to see if it's back. I'm seeing it on my system now. So if you folks will just shoot me a note there in the chat column that the audio is back, then we will move along. Okay, Shmom says it's back. Gosh knows what the gremlins are. I have no earthly idea. What can you say, right? It was working. I tested it. Hey, life was good. I think, hey, everything's ready to roll. And then nothing all of a sudden. Some days you can't win. Anyway, I don't know if you heard me, what you didn't hear. We've been away over the weekend riding roller coasters. I've had a few hours sleep. I'm ready to roll. Got this big old piece of poplar. Check this bad boy out. And I've had this thing around for a while now. All right. And I thought, what would be a good Monday Methods for somebody who found themselves in a situation where somebody gave them a big piece of wood and they only had X amount of capacity in their lathe. And they weren't set up for outboard turning, not in the truest sense as it should be. What can you do? Yeah, it's about 22 inches right now in the rough. How can you work with a piece this big? So this lathe is an 18-inch lathe. So the focus of today's Monday Methods is to take a piece like this, which measures about 20 inches, depending on where you look at it, 22, and get it turned down to an 18-inch piece, which is probably what it would end up being anyway. We might be able to sneak 19 out of it or something like that. But if you don't have a lathe that will go completely outboard, and so this lathe will, this old Colt will, but it's actually set up on the other side. So I truly can't go outboard with the extension bar or extension bed on the back side here today. So I don't have that as an option. Now I've done a lot of these on a Jet 1642, which is next door. If you have a sliding headstock, doesn't even have to pivot, but if you have a sliding headstock and you can slide it down to the end, you can either buy or fabricate a tool rest, an outboard tool rest, if you will, and you can do a whole lot of things. I mean, you can turn really big stuff out there. I've turned some really big 30-something inch pieces off the end of that 1642. So that is one way. With an outboard, I actually just used a sawhorse with a piece of 2x8 yellow pine on end, so it was end grain, cut to the height of what would be my tool rest. The tool doesn't know if it's laying on a piece of steel or a piece of really hard yellow pine on the end grain. And I fastened that 2x8 to a sawhorse to the right height and was able to just move it around wherever I needed, and it worked pretty well. This lathe, the headstock slides, and it also pivots. So if you have the luxury of a pivot and you don't want to mess with the tool rest fabrication or buying a $300 or $400 external tool rest, there are ways, and there is a way that I have used before to get this turned down to a size that will fit over the ways so you can get back to normal turning. without using an external tool rest. Okay, so that's the plan here today. Now this thing is soaking wet. It's wrapped in cellophane. It has been wrapped in cellophane since like March or April. So it's kind of greasy and sleazy and all that. But it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna set it back down. I don't know what it weighs. I started to weigh it. It's probably 50 pounds, give or take. Biggest weight-wise I've ever turned is about 80 pounds. I think it was 82. What I'm going to mount this to start with today, I'm going to mount it on a 6-inch faceplate. And this is a big steel faceplate. And I'll pop you in the overhead here. And I've used this one for years. It actually came with the 1640, the Jet 1642. It's got 18 screw holes in it. Okay? And this is what I've hung a lot of big stuff on. It's Bradley in his natural habitat. Absolutely, Rich. I hope you're healing up there, buddy. And so I'm going to use all 18 holes. I had to dig around. And I have my 18 1.5 square drive number 10, not number 8s, but number 10s screws. And I don't have a super close up. But you can, if you can see there in that one screw hole, I know it's not close. Let me come over here to the end camera. Here's what's important about finding the right screws. That number 10 sits and fills the counter bore, if you will, just right. If you use a number 8, it drops down inside of there, okay? And you don't have as much strength. You're not utilizing the entire head. So a number 10 has a bigger head, a larger shaft, much better. And here's a close-up of that big faceplate. Had a little resin on it, but it came right off with a chisel. Imagine that. So when these screws, like I said, are 1.5 inches or so, I claim. Yep, they're 1.5 inches. When they come through the piece, we're going to get right at 1 inch of screw holding. Okay, so that's 18 inches of screw holding hanging onto this guy. All right, that's one of my favorite things to do. I have a ball with these. Now, one thing about it is this thing is really heavy. It's not cut perfectly around. It was cut with the chainsaw. It wasn't cut on a bandsaw. So just like my bandsaw here, I'd probably break the bed though. I could get this under there. So we're making the assumption that you don't have a big old bandsaw to cut this guy nice and round. And you did the best you could with your table saw, okay? Or with your chainsaw, which is roughly what I did here. So we're going to mount the faceplate to what will be the inside. We're going to slide the headstock down, rotate it, and then I'm going to mount the tool rest and the banjo from the back side. I'll come in from the left-hand side, unless I change my mind on this. But that's the plan. We'll come in from the back side, and I'll show you how this works. It's pretty cool. You can actually turn this piece with it turning outboard back here from your tool rest and banjo being on the ways of the lathe without an extension. So I hope that makes sense. If you got questions, you know where to put them over there in the chat column. Let me get this thing unwrapped. It's nasty. I'm going to get all slimy. God only knows. And this is going to be a clunk, 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 shake the building kind of thing. And I think you'll find it interesting, that at least the approach that I use sometimes on these. You might think that I would use like the biggest tool that I had, but I may just use the smallest tool that I have. I may use a Easywood Tools #1 hollower with a small CI5 carbide cutter on it to be my first tool. Why? Because it's a real small, light cutter, doesn't have a big impact. No telling if there's going to be any nice colors in this or not. It's got mold and growth all over it. Like I say, it's been hanging out. Now, I could have gone out and cut this some more with the chainsaw this morning, but I thought, let's just go with what we've got, see what shakes. Okay? It is heavy. And you do want to be careful. This would be a good day to wear the steel-toed shoes. There might be some interesting color in this. There might not. I'm going to put you back in the overhead here, just kind of give you like that, so you can see what this guy looks like. I'm going to take a paper towel and just kind of wipe this thing down a little bit. Get some of the gunk off of it as I start to measure. You don't have one specific spot exactly to measure from, to say, hey, this is where the corners are. I do see my magic marker. I see an old magic marker line here, and I think I see one there. I'll take my big divider out and I'll try and find the center the best I can. The reason that it's important, with this thing being so big and so much mass, it's already not perfectly round anyway. So if we're kind of far off of our center, it's going to make things even worse. So we want to get as close to the centered weight as we can. But some other things that come into play on a piece of wood like this, it may not be evenly weighted with the moisture content. So even when this thing gets to be round, it may still be heavier on one side than another. You'll find that often in these big wet pieces, and this was the outside of the tree. So you'll be confused. You'll get it all nice and round finally, and still you can't turn the thing very fast. It still wants to vibrate because it's just out of balance. It weighs more on one side than the other. It's truly round, but it's not balanced. And you just have to kind of take your time. This is often a slow project. Get some of that mass out of it, and then you can get the speed up as you go slowly. So let me do this one more time, because this thing really is a mess. And I'm going to find my divider, my Harbor Freight divider. Now right now it's kind of interesting, and most all this is going to get turned away. You know, there's some red in here. We've got black streaks, mildew, mold, different things like that. If this poplar is not attractive when it's turned, it's a perfect candidate for a really large Rustina style project, a metallic reactive paint. So I'll be lucky to find anything today, considering that I have a few hours sleep that I'm running on. My dividers usually live out here, or in there where they're supposed to be, but you never know. Be my luck, I put them somewhere else last week into craziness. Where did I put you guys? Then maybe I left them next door. Let me see. I'm gonna change this camera so I don't walk in front of you guys. Did I put them over here? It's embarrassing when I can't find things. There is another organizational plan coming at this place sooner or later. One would think they can't be too far away, and they're not too far away. The question is, how far away are they? And if I can't find them here in another 30 seconds, we'll just move on without them and go about this the old school way. And I think that's what we're going to do, because I can't put my hands on them right off. So let's see here. Right here, if you can see this, if you can see me marking, that's an original magic marker mark right there. And it kind of looks like I had one over there. So it was probably drawn at about 20 or so. But what we've got, we'll go square to square, so we are 20. And I'm going to take my ice pick, and we're just going to start hunting for the center of this based off our 2 square cuts. And that's pretty darn close when I stick that on there. I know it's not zoomed in real close, but literally that landed on 10 inches each way. And I can check it from wherever. That's 10 and a quarter, 10 and 3/8 right there. Check it back across here. That's 20 and a half and 10 and a quarter. That's probably the longest side. These two short sides are centered up. So if this is the longest side, and that's 20 and a half, and it's at 10 and a quarter, that's real close. This side has bark waning off of it. 10 and a quarter off of that side to here. So that's really close to the center. Two cameras going. What, is that a question or a statement, Dad? Oh, I see what you're saying. What's going on? That is kind of weird because I need to hit that button, and that should take care of that. Although maybe I could run it that way in the background. When I reached over, I inadvertently hit an extra button there. So there's our center, more or less. And I'm just going to line this up over the hole, just eyeball that. Okay. Now I've got my drill. It's all set up, got its bits in it. You kind of like that two camera thing, huh? I actually am planning to actually do the windows in window kind of thing real soon here. I just got to make some time to get out here and set up to do it. It's in the software. So I'm going to clutch this at about 12 out of 15 and I don't want to strip these screws out. Okay, so I want to make sure it's clutched. We'll put them all in here. So we'll zoom around. I'll pop you into the overhead. You can see that going on. I've been using these for a while now. So I need to go, because I feel I'm starting to strip out the holes even though they're square drives. I need to go to the box store and buy another package of these. You don't use them forever, because what will happen is you'll get them in, but then you won't be able to get them out. Okay? So after a while, pony up $8 or whatever it is. Go down to your favorite box store and get another box of these guys. Dropped one into my face mask. Now I don't have a camera set up to the back today, but I think I can make this work and get you the angles that you need to see. And like I said, I've been wanting to turn this guy for a long time. So today seemed like the good day to do it. Get out here, rough turn this big old piece of wood. Nothing real delicate at all about it. Because then I have to run over to Spiracraft as soon as I finish here, pick up some supplies that didn't come in last week, and I got all the other supplies in. Also, all the woodcraft came in, or woodcraft woodcut came in after I left. I had told DHL, I sent them 2 notifications to hold it and deliver today. After we left town, looking at the security camera, and lo and behold, there's my DHL box on the front porch. About the time we crossed the Florida-Georgia line. Luckily, it was all still on the front porch. So I'll be a busy little shipper this afternoon, but for now, we're going to make a mess in big chips. Also, before I get too far along, I went ahead and sharpened up 3 of my big tools, or one big tool, the 3/4 inch Carter & Son, a 5/8, and a 1/2 inch bowl gouges. Put a fresh edge on them for the work. But also, as I was saying, wherever I've hidden it now, my number 1 hollower. Where did I put you? Can't be too far away. I got too many tools in here. Number 1 hollower. So this has got the smallest little carbide cutter from Easywood that they make on it. And this little cutter with this nice big shaft oftentimes is a great choice. Um, Wait a minute, my wife just chimed in. Delicate is not a word I associate with you, but you made some delicate pieces that I can claim as mine. Well, thank you, dear. I'm very delicate. I take offense. I know I don't. This small cutter gives me a very light cut. So when I'm working with this big piece of wood, sure, this is a big old giant chunk of steel, and you'd work with the very tip, okay? But you might, if you inadvertently get a little too aggressive, that's a lot of steel in that tip right there to catch. Or to grab hold of the wood. And so with this small cutter, you can take nice light cuts until we get this thing kind of into some controllable order and shape. So I have found that this is a great alternative to using your big bowl gouge. Surprising, but quite effective. And it's when I would do this at the woodworking shows, it would always blow people away that I would use that little teeny tool. Now I'm looking for, the other choice would be this hollowing tool, which has a CI3. This is the big pro hollower from Easywood Tools, and it has the bigger CI3 cutter on it. But that is an option as well, okay? Way to hurt his feelings, Bridget. He's a delicate little flower. Yeah, she knows better than that, Rich. Okay, so our faceplate is mounted. I'm going to set this guy back off on the floor. Hopefully I don't hurt my hernia when I go to pick it back up again. So I'd already loosened up my headstock to where I can rotate it. I love the sound of sand and grit going through there. So that, I'm looking at this overhead shot. What I want you, you're going to see the camera working over here, the tool turning over here. I might move it over just a little bit further. What I want, to a degree, is this to be centered on the lathe, because with the piece turning this way, turned 90 degrees, I have a lot of stability in the 4-foot platform of the lathe. And so the closer to the center I get, the better off I actually am, as long as I can keep the shot, the tool cutting in the shot for you. Okay, so let's see what happens here. We're going to lock this down right here. This is where it's handy to have a helper sometimes, especially when they're really wet and slimy like this one is. I'm gonna have to get dirty, that's all there is to it. And we wind her on there. On the front camera. Yeah. Okay. That's the hard part. Snug it up. It's going to tighten itself up. Okay. So it's on tight. The headstock's locked down. So here's the part that sometimes can be really difficult if you're an impatient person. We may have to turn this piece pretty slow. It's not uncommon to start out at 150 RPMs, okay, if depending on how things are balanced. So start out at 0. Step over here out of the water. There's 190. We'll call it 200. So I start to get some vibration in the lathe and the whole building, basically, because I'm shaking on this plywood floor. I put you in the end camera. You can see what's going on there. Okay. And I think this overhead shot is going to be the one. Now, here's another thing. Depending on how the controls work on your lathe, with frequency drives, and I'm not an electronics guy, and all that. Rich Bolduc in here, he's an engineer. If you just hit stop on this, it will override the electric brake, if you will, and then it will free spin. It has a brake built in to slow a piece down, but if it's too heavy and you turn it off too soon, it overrides that brake and it free spins forever. So what I've learned, and it took me a while to get my head around this, remember that 230 is a good number for me, and then before I turn it off, I go ahead and slow it down, at least on this particular lathe. Bring her back down to its slowest speed, and then I turn it off, and it doesn't do as bad. But sometimes that amount of mass just overrides the brake. Okay, so we found our starting speed, and we'll see what happens from there. Next thing, we're going to take our tool rest, and we're going to come over here to the opposite side of things. And in the overhead, you can see how I'm going to position the tool rest out here. Now, yes, I have the tool rest, the banjo, extended out pretty far. And I have a 12-inch tool rest here. I'm going to move. You can see me unwinding the control here, or the tightener for that. I'm going to move it over here. If the paint will let me thread it in there. There we go. So we have obviously no support back here, no tailstock, none of that. That's why we have the 18 screws in there on this guy. It puts a lot of force and a lot of leverage on our tool rest, on our banjo. And you may have to tighten things more than you have in the past. Okay. And our first mission is to get this guy round. And that's our only real concern. And it's actually pretty doggone good. If you look at that spin, that's really not too bad. Okay. And I am going to start out with that number 1 hollower. Now, theoretically, I would start out with it cutting at the very center axis. Going to be kind of hard to reach that far and tell. Okay. So, I can kind of eyeball in here, run the tool across. I think I bent this thing over time. That's good. I just looking down the shaft, I think I've managed to bend that. Wouldn't surprise me in the least. I've had this tool since it came out. I have used it a ton, and a ton times over. Doesn't the tool rest need to be higher, Steve? This tool wants to cut at the center axis of the lathe, and so it is actually lined up at the center. If I show you from the other end, I'm shooting across for the tool, and it actually is lined up at the center axis of the lathe. So it's actually right where it needs to be for this tool. Okay? All right, let's see. Back over here. Back to the overhead. And we're just going to start in on this guy nice and easy. I'm putting my controls right up here where I can hit the stop if something were to go awry, and just step away. Yeah, it looks low on the video. Video can be deceiving. Also, video puts 10 pounds on you, so don't believe what you see in a video. A raincoat. This piece is really wet. I say a raincoat would be handy today. I've got my fan blowing a breeze on me because it's kind of humid. Send my fan across there. And I can actually, depending on see I'm on front camera, I can stay out of the way. I can actually stand over here. So in the end camera, you can see the piece is working is here. The water is going to sling out here to there. It's not going to hit anything but the grinder and the wall. I'm out of the way. The other thing is, I don't know if you noticed it, other than this lichen here. There was a big piece of bark on this outer edge, because this is the very, I'm trying to figure out which camera I'm on too. This is the very outer edge of the tree, and there was a big piece of bark, and that just flopped off. So that's all good. All right, okay. So I think, no face mask on, set to go, over here out of the way. We are ready to roll. I'll put you on the overhead camera and we'll take a watch and see. Let me see if I can't blow some of this out of the way here. I didn't clean up from last week. I know you guys are surprised. And I know that this is just barely in the frame. Let's try something scary here. I should really lock that in anyway. I need to set that camera. I forgot to set the focus on it. So let me run up here and adjust it while that compressor's running. If I can reach it. I'll get you a little better view of what's going on. How's that? I aim to please. There we go. Joe, I looked at the PTZ camera information you sent me. I appreciate that. There's a special webinar tomorrow that I'm going to watch as well. And now I'm going to lock this focus in here real quick. All right, that should do it. We'll watch and see. Now also, I haven't talked about it, but I have a big Nova Titan chuck over here with 130 millimeter jaws set up, ready to, when we get to that point, we'll be making a tenon. Be a 4.5 inch tenon using the Nova Titan and the 130 millimeter jaws to hold this guy. Okay, let's have some fun. Overhead. You can see a little bit better now. Take our speed up. Back, we know we can go back up to about 230. $260 is too much. About 230 is where we're going to start. Okay? Just very lightly. Work our way across here. Super light cuts. You see how nice that is with just a little teeny cutter? You're not aggressive at all. I've just got 2 fingers pushing down on the tool onto the tool rest. And if I put it on the end camera, you can see the ghost image. Get my hand in here. You can see the ghost image right in the very top of that. That tells me where my solid wood is, so it gives me a reference to look at. All right. And so you have to be a little patient on these, but you can get them going pretty good, pretty quick if they're actually balanced inside. And I'll be looking for every 10 RPMs that I can get. So every couple of passes, I will try and get myself a little more speed. Without shaking like crazy. Okay, so we're at 227 right now, and we've got a little wobble. So I tried 260, a little more wobble than I want. With this much mass, it's kind of tricky to find it wants to overrun a little bit past. And get her dialed in somewhere. This one weighs too much. I'm hesitant to try and take it up past these speeds and see if I can get it to balance. I'm trying to pull this down just a little teeny bit. I'm up at 265 and I want to come down just a touch, and it jumps all the way back down to 230 as soon as I move the rheostat. So we'll leave it at 265 for now. It shouldn't be shaking too bad. You need a lot of paper towels because your face mask gets really wet. I don't have a monitor in front of me just to watch all the time. So another thing that we can do that might help, we're going to stop the lathe. And you'll see it still free spins even though it's overriding the brake. So believe it or not, the lathe is off. That's what I'm talking about at free spinning, when the brake doesn't kick in, if the weight overpowers it. So it's sitting there turning and it's off. That's how much mass is there. There are adjustments in the frequency drives that you can play with that. That's not something I've ever done with this particular lathe. So what I'll sometimes do, just bring the tool in because there's no power to it, and that'll stop it. Now what I want to do here is I want to bring the tool rest back around this back corner, and you see how we have it falls away here, but then we have all this and then it falls away. So we're kind of close to round up here. We've still got some flat spots, but if we can start to take this back corner off, it's up in here, and you can't quite see in the picture. Let me get my fingers there. It looks better on the other out in front. If we cut some of this back corner away, that can help us. So I'm going to move my tool as far back as I can and concentrate on this very outer back edge. What's the thickness of this guy? I didn't even measure it, Mark. Let's see. It is About 5.5 inches, roughly. Más o menos. Yeah, 5.5. So what I want to do is try and take some of this away from the back corner here and match this, because this is guaranteed to be the minimum curvature of our bowl. So let's take some of this mass away. All right, and that's going to help our speed and our balance. All right, so still same small tool. I'm going to come all the way back here to the back corner. I hope you can just see it off the end of the tool rest. And make sure that everything is, it's really hard to lock a tool rest down when they're this far out. That's the only problem. Okay. And we're going to work on this back corner some. Now I know you'd probably say, well, what if you don't have an Easy Wood Tools #1 hollower? Well, then you can take your big bowl gouge using just the tip. And well, what if you say, well, I don't have a big 3/4 inch bowl gouge? Well, then grab a 1/2 inch bowl gouge. This happens to be a Sorby. Grab a 1/2 inch bowl gouge. Okay, and we can actually start back up here at the front again. And we can start to work our way all the way back if we want. We can't lean on it too hard or we stall it. Okay, now I am going to stop it. And I'm going to move my tool rest. Because I can get a little bit closer now. And I don't want it hanging over any more than it has to. Get right up in there. And off we go again. So let's see. No, we can't go past 265. So we stay around 265 for right now. This is a 2 horsepower lathe, but it's running on 110. It's a 220 lathe with 2 horsepower, but it's running on 110. So I don't have full power out of it. So it'd be pretty easy for me to stall it with this much leverage and mass. So you look for a balance between how hard you can cut, how heavy you can cut, and how much speed you lose. Let's see, what's that look like in the end camera for you? It looks better, probably. I'll show you what the end camera looks like while we're cutting. You're just starting to see that. Let's see if we can we get any more speed. I'm going to try something here. And the answer is no. Tried to see if I could go past the magic 260 and I couldn't. Not yet. Never hurts to try. This lathe isn't bolted down, so I just have to be patient. Like I say, we can move through the different tools. We can go back to our number one hollower with the carbide. Let me put you back in the overhead. See, it's a fine balance between how aggressively you can try and remove it and how fast the piece will turn. And the more it gets round, closer to being fully round, the more friction you have, the more resistance you create all the way around on a piece. I wish I could turn it 500. If I could turn 500 right now, we could really move the material right off of this guy. Now you can see it's looking pretty round, in the picture, in the overall. But it's not quite there yet, and we just can't quite get. And I don't bolt this lathe down, so it has to move around too much. So we can't quite cross that 265 barrier at the moment. Okay, so let's see. I'll leave it here. I haven't been on the front camera for you. Let you see how I'm working here. Granted, if the lathe was bolted down, if it was on a concrete pad bolted down, well, you could get away with a lot more. But I kind of like to, replicate. Oh, and here's something I want to say. Now I'm stop for a second. Get that to stop. So early on when I first started turning, I did what would seem logical, and I took a barbell and put a couple of 100 pounds on it, down on the legs of the lathe and all that. And it helped, but it still would shake. You just shake more weight, okay? And believe it or not, I'm not I'm patient, but when it comes to turning, I'm not. What I found was just slow down a little bit, turn your speed down, and take your time, and you'll actually get there faster and safer. And the reason it became a big problem for me is I was traveling all the time. I would take the lathe I had out to do trade shows or demonstrations somewhere, and I was having to take that weight on and off the bottom of the lathe, and it got to be a real pain in the neck. And so I said, well, I think I'll just leave the weight off and slow down and see what happens. Well, I did, and lo and behold, by gosh, it works. It's a lot less hassle. Yes, you can do it. You can weight them and all that, and it does work. But if you have to move your machine around very often, a lot of us are in small spaces, and we have to move it. Moving that extra weight, then it becomes a real nightmare. So, hey, we're doing pretty good here. I'm going to pop you in the overhead. And we are round. There's one little spot right here that we haven't cut yet. This is all cutting round. One little flat spot right there and there. So we're pretty close to being round. So very, very soon it'll just be a matter of working these corners away now to match this radius and get our shape. And then we'll just take it down to 18 inches to where it'll just clear on the ways of the lathe. Get it to where we can turn it around. Then we'll make our tenon and then we'll move along. So that's, I mean, it takes a little while to get to that point. A little patience. I mean, what time is it? It's 11, I can't see on that one. 11:58 something. Been messing with it for, say, an hour and talking from the time I started. Maybe 45 minutes into turning, even 30 minutes maybe into really turning on this guy. So that's not bad in the overall picture of things. Let me clean this off a little bit. Now, I'm going to be a mess. That's a given. Okay. Back to the program. I'll take you back to the overhead. Dial her back up to my 260 until I can get past that. 265. I'll be glad when I can get past it. It shouldn't take too much longer, he says. Because you do get impatient, and that's one of the hard parts. And back here on the bottom is where most of our differences really is now. Let's see if we can get any more speed out of this guy. Without going crazy. No, not yet. Not yet. No nails, Michael Lang? Good to see you, Michael. No, there's no nails in this one, to my knowledge. I won't make that bad joke I made the last time about nails. I will just be quiet about nails. Between me and you, buddy. Let's see if I can get this locked down and reach around that corner a little bit better. All right. Lorianne, how you doing? I'm making a mess. I'm having fun, but I'm making a mess. So I'm going back over to a bowl gouge. I'm starting to shape a little bit more now. So I want to switch to the bowl gouge. Carter & Son 5/8. Boy, I wish I could cross that 260 barrier. We're going to stay back here and get some of this out of here. So I'm starting to use the bowl gouge a little bit more like a gouge and kind of draw a cut across here. But I have to be so careful because I slow it down and lose my rim speed. Gonna try again for a little more speed. I don't think I'm gonna be lucky enough to. No. Nope. Not gonna let me do it today till I get it all the way into shape. I can't even get to 300. Some days it's like that. Come on, Restart, give me just a couple. It jumps from 260 to 300. It's being difficult today, being contrary. $265 it is. We will stay there a little bit longer. So what I've done now is I've stepped back to the back side. So instead of being up front here where I was before, now I've stepped back here to get my angle a little bit better, and make sure I don't come off the tool rest. But I'm back here, and the spray is still, for the most part, coming out here and not hitting me. So I stay back here. And carve away. Somebody popped in. Frank! Good morning, Frank. I can almost read through the water on the goggles. You do want to stop, and I'm going to stop here again in a second and make sure you get all the water off your goggles when this piece is really wet like this, because it's really hard to see, and you need to be able to see what you're doing. Okay. Let's stop and clean off the water. Need windshield wiper on the thing is what you need. Don't blow a breaker. No, I hope not. I'm just kind of cruising, Frank. I'm not putting too much stress on her. While I'm drying things out here again real quick, if there's any kind of questions, holler away. I mean, our piece is coming into shape. Like I said, you just have to be patient on these big pieces. You know, we're running this piece of equipment at its max of what it's capable of. So you just have to slow down and take your time. You'll get there, and that's the thing to remember. And a piece like this, you could walk away. If your hands get tired or whatever, you can walk away on this. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to hurt it. It's soaking wet. If you were going to leave it for a long time, like say you're going to come back on this tomorrow, I would wrap it in a plastic bag because it will start to dry out. I mean, like I got a fan blowing on it, and you run the risk of it cracking. It's because it's soaking wet. We're opening this thing up. We're relieving the stresses. We've got air coming across it. And so if you're going to stop working on it for a while, like I say, overnight, take a trash bag, wrap it up, seal it up nice and tight. That'll keep all the moisture in, keep the air from moving across it, which is one of the most important things, is the air moving across this is what makes them dry unevenly and makes them split. You'd hate to go through this much work and this much effort and patience only to have the piece split, okay? And so like for this, when I get done rough turning it today, I need to find a paper bag. I'll probably throw it back in a plastic bag initially until I find a paper bag or a box, cardboard box to put it in so that the moisture can sublimate away from the wood, out of the wood, and go through the cardboard as it dries. I don't have anything to put it in to boil it, and I don't have anything big enough to put it in for denatured alcohol and all that kind of stuff. So I will just box it or bag it and let it dry. Okay, all right. Back at it here a little bit. Overhead camera again. That's still looking okay for you guys. Not great, but okay. I'm having a quick sip of liquid there. Alrighty. Let's get back after it, as they say. I will be happy to break this 265 barrier that I'm sitting here at. Boy, do I dare go past there. I'm 265. Okay, there's 300. Nope. It was almost steady at 300. If I can get anything more, I'll take it. In between 260 and 300. But my restat doesn't want to cooperate. So I'm still stuck here at 265-ish. The front and the back faces, this face is pretty flat, and this face back here is pretty flat. So there's not, there's a little bit out of true on the back, but not a lot. I think we're pretty close to getting to where we can maybe start to find that 300 range. It almost wanted to stay in the harmonic. Like I say, it's a trade-off of how much pressure you apply with the tool and how much speed you give up. And so if you can find and strike that balance where you're removing a reasonable amount of material without stalling the lathe, okay, I'm going to stop and move that tool rest again. Some pretty wood in there. Some of it's got some mildew, but there's also some interesting coloration just kind of going on here. Let's see if we can't get all the way out here and get this locked down. If I'm careful. I think I'll be all right. Okay, back we go. I'll make another couple of passes at 265 here, and then see if I can't get on up. If I can cross this barrier and get up another 50, 100 RPMs, it'll make all the difference in the world. I haven't turned anything big like this in a while. I love these. I'm a weird turner. I love turning big things and I love turning little things. You know, I'm equally happy with a big bowl gouge in my hand or a micro tool. All right, I'm going to try to sneak up on this ever so gently. Come on, work with me. Work with me. I'll take 10 RPMs if I can get them. Okay, finally, we went to 303. And it's not walking across the room. Because when I lean on it, I'm only turning about 190. Slows down to 150. Okay. You see, I'm getting happier all the time here. So you can see we start to get some decent shavings coming off, and even at the top when I lean on it there now, I'm still up around it's around 230 or so. Okay, so let's take a little check here and see what our diameter is looking like. Ballpark. Okay, we're right at, give or take with the bent ruler, about 20, which will not go over the bed. So if we take an inch off of this, just 1 inch off in here, that'll take us down to 18, and we'll be able to turn this around, work on our bottom, flatten our bottom, because we can't get to this, we can't really reach this back side over here yet. So we just don't have a tool rest long enough to get around there to work on that. So if I take an inch off of here, and I'll pop you in front. If I just take an inch off of here, well, that's 2 inches off the whole piece. and all of a sudden I fit over my ways, very close, and we'll test it, and then we can turn around and I can actually bring the tailstock up and clean up the bottom. I can true up the face, and we can move on from there and get the real shape. So let's go ahead and see about taking an inch off of the top right up here. So it's kind of like when you go get a haircut, take an inch off the top. All right. And you can see a line. You see, I don't know if you can see this line right here. That's kind of a reference. It looks like if I start right about there and just kind of flatten this guy off. See if anything else is a little sharper still. If I've lost the edge off of that. People always wonder, they ask you, how do you know when your tool's not sharp? Well, when it doesn't cut like it used to. So I just switched tools back to a freshly sharpened, the big 3/4. Of course, I can't lean on it too hard. So you can see how quickly that kind of came into shape there. And you can see the flat section now in the end wrong camera. In the end camera, I'm just kind of flattening that out to help make it to where we can turn it over the lathe, back over the lathe. We'll catch up this hump here. Let's see if we can't get a little more speed just for fun. Just for fun, come on, give me a little bit. That was 1 RPM, thank you. I would like 10. Okay, let's see where we're at size-wise here. Get this guy to stop. All right. We're still at 19, so we still have a bit to go. And I say this is an 18-inch lathe. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah. Okay. A little bit more. A little bit more to go. This lathe runs on 220. Yes, it does run on 220, and it is running on 220, but it's running on it off of a 110 inverter down here, because I had the 220 next door, and I had the 220 over here for a while, and I need to bring it back. One of those things. All right, we're going to move this down a little bit closer. And I have to have a little bit right there. There we go. Okay, got to get a little bit more off of here. But we're getting close. We've got nice sapwood on one side and spalted on the other. Kind of weird looking, but that's okay. All right, back to turning in the overhead. She's happy at 300. Cutting quite nicely. We just have to take our time. And can you see? It's kind of hard to see in the way that shot works. I'm really just about 11 o'clock, just off the tip. Now another thing that's going on, so at the moment, if you look, you'll see I've got myself kind of boxed in here. The tool is on my right. I'm leaning up against the lathe. So I really should change hands, practice on my off-handed turning. Much more comfortable. I get a better angle with the tool. So I'm actually taking about 1/8 of an inch in this pass right now. So if I just take my time, like I said, I'm trying to find that balance between how much I can cut and how hard I can push without losing speed. So it's actually turning about 200, 225 right now with the load on it. And it's pretty consistent, so you see that consistent shaving coming off. And I'm looking at the speed, it's about 220, 225. And so if I'm just patient and ride along at that speed, I can take off 1/8 of an inch a pass. Okay, so that's not too bad. So if you can just get yourself into that nice little groove, find the speed that's a nice compromise, and just keep moving material nice and steady. The lathe isn't shaking. I'm looking kind of around the corner. As I said, I'm about 220, 230. Just slowly taking this diameter down. And all the time I'm doing this, I'm taking mass out of it. So that theoretically, I could actually possibly turn it up a little bit more now. Theoretically. So now we're able to get up with a shake. We finally, we crossed we're over 400. We've got a shake in it a little bit. Not a bad shake though. It's not great to have it. But now we can turn it 300. And luckily there's not the toolbox, there's a toolbox over there that's getting just a few chips in it. It's not filling anything up too much. Okay. I'm going to look down here and see that is, boy, that's super close to fitting. Let me make another pass up here. Take a high spot away here. Change hands. One more pass up here. Okay, let's see, we're going to turn this now. Let's see if we can get it over our ways. We got chips all over the place. One of those days of cleaning. All right, let's see what kind of luck we're going to have here. Are we there? Are we close? We'll find out. Oh, look at that. So, I know you can't see underneath, but it clears by about 1/8 of an inch. So, we went just exactly as far as we needed to get it turned around. So now we can kind of reorchestrate everything. Again, a little patience goes a long way. We'll slide this guy back down here where it normally lives. Somewhere right around here. And I will go and adjust that overhead camera. Okay. So we have maximized the use of our lathe. You can't see it fall away here if I pop it on the end camera, but it falls away and it just barely clears under there, okay? And that's what we wanted. We wanted to get the biggest piece out of here. out of this piece of wood, biggest bowl that we can make on this lathe within reason. And so that's going to be really good. I am going to jump up. I'll put you on the end camera, and I'm going to jump up. Yeah, Rich. Because I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. Otherwise, it'd be finished. I used to be faster, Rich, but I'm getting older. All right, let me get you an overhead so I can adjust this, or I mean the end camera so I can adjust this overhead camera. Art, yes, this is Poplar. Indeed it is. So we'll get that about like so. Maybe a little bit further over so you can see the tools working to the center. And the outer edge. Maybe just a tick more like that. Oh, wrong button. Overhead work is tough. Back in focus right there. All right, that should do the trick for that. Should. How am I doing on time? Am I going to run out of time? I got to go get pieces, parts, and tools to ship to folks here. It is 12:35. Okay, so I got 30 minutes to get this thing on in a chuck and some of it turned around. Let's zoom in that end camera now. Take care of some of that. So you can see what goes on. Set the focus on that. All right. That should hopefully stay in focus. Might make you dizzy. Okay. Got to adjust a few things here, change this tool rest around real quick. I got the locker mechanism on the opposite side right now. Get in there. There we go. Okay, and you can see, so even though this is round, it's not in balance. It's heavier on that one side than the other. Even though it's now perfectly round, it has a heavy side. Remember earlier I was talking about that, where you can have them perfectly round and it still won't be in balance. It's going to want to shake and rattle. And now that I have turned it to over the ways, it's going to shake a little bit more because now I don't have as much stability because I was going this way on the legs of the lathe before. Now I'm this way, it's going to rock and roll a little bit more. And we just have to get some mass out of it and see where we're at and get that speed down or speed up. Okay, so I am going to clean up the bottom, be my first move, and then we'll start to profile this guy a little bit. We'll see what kind of speeds we can turn. You will do exactly as I say. Okay. If you say so, Art. All right. Down here to the end. Get ourselves set up. I think I'll take a 5/8. Looks about right. See what kind of speeds we can turn. Make sure everything's locked down because it's not yet. There we go. Okay. End camera. Oh, it looked hypnotic. I see what you're saying, Art. I got the joke now. So that's 265 with a little shake. Can we go over without going crazy? Got a little shake, but I think we can work with it. We'll see. I mean, it's vibrating. Let me see how this works. Because what I want to do is shape it real quick at this higher speed. And it should come into play. So I'll just start to take some material off of here real quick. And I may have to adjust this. Okay, it's pretty down here. It's pretty wood. It's got lots of nice color to it. It's being cantankerous because it's out of weight. It's out of balance. It's round, but it's out of balance. Okay. She's going to be difficult on me today, I can see. You see, when it goes down past 200 there, it really gives us a hard time. Again, because we're on a floor that's not mounted. So we're going to slow her back down. I was hoping I could get it to come into submission there. It definitely doesn't like 265 anymore because we lost our footing. Just a little too unruly. And I need to clean my shield here real quick. So we'll take a break from it. So that's what happens when I turned it from this long axis of having the stability of a 4-foot wide set of legs, if you will, to 16 inches. I lost some of that speedability. No, Art, I'm not going to bolt it down because I have to move it around too much. And so that's part of the lesson, is how do we deal with a heavy piece like this on a lathe that's not bolted down, that needs to move. Not everybody in their shop has the luxury of having their lathe being able to stay in the same spot all the time. Sometimes they have to be on wheels and roll them in and out. So that's what this part of this process is about, is how do we deal with it safely without having it fixed. And so that last little bit of turning, that was a little too fast, and it's unfortunate we have to slow back down to get some more mass out of this, but that's just what we'll have to do. All right. Some nice spalting in the outer edges of this. And I'm going to grab, I'm going to change, I've got another tool that's freshly sharpened up here, another 5/8. I'm going to change handles and put a handle on it real quick. There we go. This one just wasn't back in a handle yet. It had been sharpened up last week. Nice, fresh Carter & Son 5/8 bowl gouge. Sharpened up on the Woodcut Tools True Grind sharpener. Made it nice and sharp, real quick and easy. Okay. All right. Back to, I'll put you in the overhead this time. And we'll see what speed we can work with. Again, we're going to try and keep it somewhere where it's not walking around the room because we don't have the luxury of bolting this down. Now there's 230, 227. And when we try and go past this, there's a harmonic that makes it shake real bad. And then we can go up and we get that vibration. But that's just too bouncy to be in good control of the tool. Now up at 600, it kind of comes into a little bit more control. And this is a thing that's a little, it's a little iffy. But if it'll stay in control with just that amount of vibration, that's not horrible. And it will allow us to move a lot of material pretty quickly. Hey, we got a knot in there. Imagine that. My lucky day. My piece has a knot in it. How do you like that? Okay, so we'll keep in overhead. So I'm going to try and bring this profile on up around the corner here. Yeah, she's in low range. So the goal is to keep the maximum diameter and get a nice shape for our piece. Again, this is rough as green, so we're going to turn it a second time. So she's getting more and more into submission, if you will. And you can see what it looks like here from the end. This is where our tenon area is going to be. That's where the knot is. Unfortunately, we've got a knot right there. Kind of threw us a bit of a curve. Hidden way down in there. Okay. I'm going to go back up on the overhead here. Now when we turn this around and take some of the mass out of the middle, life will get a whole lot better. I'm going to pop you down to the end here now. We'll go to work on the tenon for this guy. Get this smoothed up. So our knot keeps getting bigger as we expose more material right here. Now here's the size of our tenon right here, which is just going to be, looks like at the edge of that knot. Okay, so we're going to slow her back down, and we're going to come in here and define where our tenon is going to go. One of these days I'm going to find my other calipers or go buy some more. And then we're going to leave it a little oversized. Okay. I'm going to come in with a smaller bowl gouge. I can use my carbide tool, but I thought I'd use a bowl gouge for fun. To start. Okay, that looks about right. This just slightly oversized, okay. And we'll grab our square cutter, like we often do. What am I doing on time? Can't quite read with my goggles on. 52? Ooh, just about out of time. We'll barely get this guy turned around. But we'll get it turned around. Okay. The last stage, and this is what we want to do, is we'll get it off the faceplate into the chuck. 7 more hours to go. Oh no 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 no! We're in the home stretch now, Rich. I do have to go to Brooklet here real soon, but all right. Pop all 18 screws out of here. Get in there. I keep saying I need to order those new glasses. I have the new prescription. I just keep forgetting to get around to it. And it's obvious I need to get them. I just don't see right any these days. So this piece of wood has been difficult, especially because of the fact that it is out of balance in its own round self. And it just makes it more difficult to deal with. It's perfectly round, and yet it won't turn at a balanced speed. If it was balanced, it would turn at these speeds without any trouble now. And sometimes you get, especially when a big green piece of wood like this has been sitting outside, it's one side was on the ground, and even though it was in plastic, one side was on the ground and one side was facing up. And so it's got more moisture in the wood on one side than the other. And that makes, for a really just difficult situation, because you want to get it up and turn it at a reasonable speed and not have it shake where you can make nice clean cuts. And when your lathe is in a mobile state where it's not bolted down and not fixed, you have to just work with that. And so this has actually worked out well for what I wanted to show today. You can do it. You can start with a very large blank. And if you're patient, something hopefully less than 7 hours, Rich, maybe 6.5. You can turn a big old giant bowl just a little bit beyond your capacity when you start. Okay? Hopefully, knock on wood, I don't curse myself saying this out and blow this one like I did a couple of weeks ago. Okay, we're good this time. I was starting to think I'd lost my touch. So I want to make sure that's set up in there nice and flat. So when I show you in the overhead, you can't quite see because the lathe walked around. So I have about an 1/8 or so, just about a perfect circle, a nice gap back there on the back side. Of course, I got to remember on this chuck to turn it the right direction. She turns pretty true. Show you what it looks like from the end back there. She's all black right now. And this is soft and green, so these jaws are going to tighten and compress a lot. Interesting that it's got a knot in there. Seems to be the story of my life, but I like knots in pieces. I think it gives them character. All right. So again, when you watch in the end camera, if I turn this to here, it is definitely weighted to one side. And that's what's given me the difficult time with the balance issue. And that's why I can't turn it very fast. Because it's even though it's round, even though it's perfectly round across here, it's out of balance. Okay? All right. Let's see what we can do to clean this face up. Take a little bit out of the inside, leave it a couple inches thick. This is a big bowl. We can leave this a couple inches thick. That'll hypnotize you right there. I could get my coring machine out. That's what I ought to do. You know what? I think I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna stop here because we can core this. So I'm gonna stop and clean this up. Now I'm not gonna do it today, but I just thought about this. This thing's 6 inches deep. So this guy is 6 inches deep, 18 inches in diameter. I would be crazy. 16 and a half now I cut it down. I would be crazy not to take my woodcut bowl corer, although I'm out of time today. If I wasn't out of time, I would set this guy up, take my woodcut bowl corer. That's what we're going to do next. This piece. And this is holiday week. I don't know if I get to it. I may just save this for next Monday. We'll take the bowl corer and we're going to core this guy out because this is a perfect candidate. We can cut a 14-inch bowl as our first big bowl out of this. So we've got a great candidate now for that. And because I say I'm out of time, but that's a great idea. I'm happy that I just thought of that. So if I was just going to make chips out of this thing, I would keep on carving away the inside here and just carve all this out and throw all those chips on the floor. Instead, we'll take the woodcut bowl corer and we'll get probably 3 bowls out of this. We'll get the main big bowl, and then we'll get a 14-inch bowl and say a 12-inch bowl, and maybe even an 8, something like that. And that's the beauty of that woodcut bowl coring system, is we won't waste all this material that's in this bowl and this bowl blank. So that's a cool deal. I don't know. I'm not used to having a bowl corer around. So now I'm super stoked to make multiple bowls out of this because this is the first big blank I've pulled in here since I've had the bowl corer around. So hey gang, it is 1 o'clock, a little after, and I do have to run over to Spiracraft and pick up some supplies there and then get back and do a bunch of shipping this afternoon for all my good friends who have purchased products from Spiracraft at the product showcase. That was a little delay on some of the stuff coming in, and I apologize for that, but we're going to get it out to you today, tomorrow, have it all on the way to you. So let's wrap this up. We'll save this